Okay, good evening, everyone. The hour being after 7:30, I'd like to call the January 28th school committee meeting to order. And just want to explain that due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency on March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Pursuant to the order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure the public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. Citizens with a question or comment can put that comment into the chat box, and citizens who want to speak during open or during citizens' comments can put their name and address and just a note that they would be interested in speaking during that portion of our meeting. At that point, we would ask you to please unmute your microphone, and if you have any questions regarding this process in general, our very able assistant, Mary Mortali, will be glad to explain that to people if you were to call the superintendent's office. So, thank you. And the first order of business is we have two recognitions that we would like to do tonight. The first one is to recognize the amazing work done by our school nurses. I know you want to share a few words, Dr. Goff, so I'll turn it over to you. But I have a feeling many of us will want to chime in a little bit on this one.
Okay. And before I start, Bill, do you have any way that we can maybe make them co-hosts so they can put their cameras on? Do you have the ability to do that?
I just changed the feature, so they should be able to now. Sorry about that, everyone. We want to see you, so try it now.
All right.
I wonder why they're sitting so quiet.
It looks so much better. This goes without saying, the Walpole Public School nurses, they have gone above and beyond to keep staff and parents, families, and students informed of all changing COVID protocols while performing all of their other nursing duties. They've exhibited patience and empathy towards all. They take time to listen and alleviate any worries or anxiety. Our nurses spend many evenings and weekends texting, emailing, and calling staff and families to complete contact tracing. They're doing an outstanding job partnering with administration to support students and staff to help maintain a safe learning environment, given these unprecedented times. They are dedicated to helping our community members have a clear understanding of the COVID guidance from both the CDC and our Walpole Board of Health, and how it translates to the district protocols and procedures in order to keep us safe. So we'd publicly like to thank each of them for their dedication, their hard work, and positive attitudes that are exhibited every single day. I'll introduce, and then I'll let anybody else who has some words to say. Rachel Jackson, Walpole High School. Heather White, Walpole High School. Samantha Ludwig at Bird Middle School. Linda Anderson, Johnson Middle School. Elizabeth Martinez, Johnson Middle School. Shannon Granata, Boyden School. Ellen Newman at Elm Street School. Lindsay Moyes at Fisher School. Bonnie Kowalski at Old Post Road School. And then also Stephanie Stanton, who does the Blackburn Hall coverage for extended learning. And last, but certainly not least, I've talked to this person every day and every weekend, is Kathy Garvin, our fearless and unsung hero, I would say, as school nurse leader for Walpole Public Schools. So thank you all. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add. Julie?
I would just like to say thank you to all of you for just your tireless and endless efforts in something that all of us are going through together for the first time, that none of us ever could have predicted. And your communication with us, with the staff, and easing our fears and anxieties, in addition to working with the children every day and the families, It's incredible, like what you do, truly. And you probably, I hope you hear that a lot, because I think a lot of the information that you're relaying is often, it's hard to digest, it's hard to understand, dates, timelines. So it's a lot of information to process, and you do it and at least so easy. And in addition to all the other responsibilities, and I'm just going to speak, Ellen also works at the preschool, so she comes down to us and visits us regularly for all the other things that happen with children that are 3, 4, and 5, in addition to COVID. So you all are amazing, and we just can't thank you enough. I'll speak on behalf of my colleagues, but thank you for all you do, and I hope you get some well-deserved rest time in your future soon.
Well said, Julie.
I'll jump in then too. Thank you so much to Samantha. It's great to have you on board. What a way to start your first year at Bird Middle School. And thank you to Kathy Garvin too, and to everybody for all the hard work, because a lot of the things that you're doing these days it's almost, it is a thankless job, and you're giving not always good news, but you're always doing good work for our staff and for our students and for our families and for us too, because I really learned a lot from you, Samantha, this year. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody else too.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Yes, I would just like to echo everything that Julie and Ed said. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ellen, I can't specifically thank you enough. And your humor makes every day just so enjoyable. And I really, truly appreciate your positive attitude through everything. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Anybody from school committee want to chime in? Go ahead, Kristen.
I just want to say we're constantly amazed that we're days away from the end of a semester, and we are able to get it in, and we're still here. My son's in high school, so the fact that he's been able to go to school 2 days a week is awesome. And I know that it's in large part to what you guys are doing. So, thank you from a parent as well. We really appreciate it.
Bill, go ahead.
Hey, Nancy. Again, to echo thanks. I was a nurse's aide for many years, so I love and I'm afraid of nurses. I have a healthy kind of mix of both. But I always go back to when we bring our nursing staff in. A presentation Kathy Garvin gave to FinCom a few years ago about all of the things before we even begin to talk about COVID and begin to talk about what amazing work you do. All of the duties that have increased as a school nurse over the years, the level of tracking students' allergies and making sure you have enough EpiPens and inhalers and things like that. And Kathy gave us some data a few years ago just about the tremendous amount of individual touches and visits you have with students. And then you add COVID on top of that, and then you add sort of being also in charge of best practices and encouraging all those things, but also dealing with trying to look at symptoms as well. So I just think this year in particular, it's underscored the tremendous work you do, but it's on top of all of the increasing responsibilities you all have. So it's amazing work. We should all be proud by the core work of what you do as healthcare professionals in our schools, that we aren't like some other districts that we've been doing so well, and it's really built upon the work you all started with. And I remember opening a school report a few months ago now, talking about how you all came in early and were working together, and you're talking with Rachel Jackson about trying to put together the frameworks of how school was going to look. And I know you were all central in that. So this is a tremendous amount of community gratitude for all the work you've done this year.
Very well said, Bill. I was going to also point out that it's more than just getting us through COVID. Obviously, that's a piece that is on everybody's mind right now, but there's so much responsibility on the shoulders of our nurses. And I think that the community really responds well to your professionalism and your kindness. I think that people appreciate the fact that when it's their turn to get a phone call, people take time to explain it, because it it's not what you want to hear when it's your phone that's ringing. And I think your kindness is amazing, and you don't always hear that. So we wanted to be sure that you heard it from a number of us tonight. Are there other people that would like to say anything?
Yeah, Carrie's got has her hand raised.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't see you, Carrie.
Yeah, it's okay. I just wanted to echo a little bit of what Julie said. As a school counselor, I know that all of you are unofficial members of the school counseling staff in your buildings, and how valuable your support of our students and our families and our staff's mental health and social emotional well-being is. I think, even in pre-COVID times, you are people who have to absorb a lot of anxiety and stress and fear from kids and families and staff. And obviously that's only intensified right now. And it can be heavy to carry all of that and to have all that put on you on top of everything else that you're responsible for. So I certainly appreciate that, and agree with Julie that I hope as soon as circumstances allow you to take a tropical vacation, you go and get one for yourself.
Well, as the Old Post Road kids would say, we are here to give you a standing O, because you fully deserve it. Thank you very much. And we're not even going to joke with you. You do not need to stay on this any longer. Just put your feet up and get into bed. Thank you for being here tonight, though. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. See you tomorrow, Kathy.
Okay, our next recognition has to do with the fact that the drama club at Walpole High School persevered and performed in December. And I believe we have Liam Welch here tonight to tell us about that. So, yeah, Dr. Goff?
So the Walpole High School Drama Club, they held a radio show presentation. And as you mentioned, Liam Welch is going to talk to us a little bit about the presentation. Just a little bit about it. It was actually it was a fall production that supplanted the annual musical, and it was actually an old one used back during the high school renovation 20 years ago, because it had to be performed actually on the road. So it fit the situation as students could rehearse in a hybrid manner. So I'll let Liam talk a little bit about the setup and what it took to put this on, and just the experience behind it. It's all yours, Liam.
Thank you, Dr. Goff. So basically, the whole situation surrounding COVID and the drama club was that we couldn't sing, basically, because indoors is just no good for singing or something that requires a lot of breath. And so we had to do the radio show, which was a lot of fun. I commend Mr. Diatilio a lot for working under these circumstances and delivering a very fun performance that we all enjoyed very much. We used masks that were provided to us by Nurse Jackson. I also want to recognize her as a big part of the drama club, and just tremendous efforts in conducting herself in this COVID-19 epidemic. And that Mr. O'Farrell also helped us tremendously with the production of the whole thing. He provided us with the 5-camera system, I believe, and allowed us to get our show out in a streamlined and orderly fashion, which will also account for the musical that is coming out this spring, for those of you interested. We will be using similar tactics with the masks and such, but we will be doing it outside instead of indoors. We will be doing virtual singing rehearsals. We will also be doing rehearsals outside in preferably Bird Park or somewhere like that. And we will be lip syncing to the songs in order to curb the breathing aspect of the musical. So, yes, and Mr. O'Farrell will also provide us with the media system that he provided us with the radio show. Any questions?
I'd just say wow, but I'm sure there are some people that might like to question or comment. Yes, I thought so, Bill.
It's funny. I was in the show 20 years ago that they did over at what is now Elm Street, which was not Elm Street then, and it was a lot better. It was attached in our packet, and I just like to ask, Mary, at this time, it would be great to attach the performance, which I believe is on Walpole Media, or maybe through the high school TV's online presence, attach it to our e-notes, because it's a pretty interesting and enjoyable hour and a half. I love them. I love the masks that were see-through. It was so cool. I was looking at it at first. I was like, they don't even look like they're wearing masks. But as an alumnus, I love your program a lot, and I'm so proud to see that Walpole Drama continues to persevere and find scrappy ways to create art in this pandemic, and to kind of be together. I know Carrie and Kristen are also our resident kind of art folks here on the committee, but this is great stuff, and we're glad to have you here recognized, and hopefully we can use our e-notes and maybe this meeting to kind of publicize a little more what you're doing, as well as the spring show as well. And just remember, when Mr. D tells you, threatens to make you do Gilbert and Sullivan, it's always an empty threat. You're never actually going to have to do it, but
I'm sure he'll get his way one day. I also want to recognize Gina DeCito, who could not be with us today. She is sick with the flu, unfortunately. She actually had the idea for using the masks that we used, so I also wanted a big thanks to her.
I guess I would just add, groups like this are just so important for students to have their people that they really match up well with, and to make high school meaningful. High school has a tremendous amount of academics that are important, but finding your place among the community is so important. And I was just so glad to see that there was a way for the drama club to continue this fall. And that sounds amazing to me, that you're going to be able to do a musical in the spring with the cleverness of lip syncing, and the technology, I would imagine, is what's going to put all your voices together. But it's something like Bill just said, we should advertise, because it's really a cool thing. It's an important part of Walpole High School, and it's a great way to advertise one of the important features that Walpole High offers to its students. So thanks for being with us here tonight, Liam.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I say on behalf of the entire drama club that we really, really appreciate the recognition you guys have given us. And I'm sure Mr. D appreciates that a lot too. This was his entire plan, after all. He thought of this, told me and Gina about it, and sent us off to do our thing. And now I'm here telling the school committee about all of it.
very good.
Nice job. Are there any other comments? Well, thank you.
We'll get it out in the notes, Nancy, tomorrow, so to make sure that the people can, we'll get the link out.
That would be great, and we're looking forward to the springtime, Liam, so thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, speaking of Walpole High School, our next item is the student report that'll be done by Grace Ryan. Grace, the floor is all yours.
Good evening, I'm Grace and I'm a sophomore at Walpole High School. Tomorrow, the 29th, is the last day of semester 1. On Monday, February the 1st, the high school will start semester 2 with each student starting 4 new classes. Students are looking forward to meeting their new teachers and classmates. This past Tuesday, juniors took the PSATs with each cohort at different ends of the school to stay separated. Both cohorts of grades 9, 10, and 12 were all remote on Tuesday, and Wednesday was still our all-remote day. Walpole coaches, staff, in grades 6 through 12 will soon be voting on a new mascot name. The renaming committee is meeting again shortly to finalize the options. The current options are Wolfpack, Patriots, and Walpole. Many winter sports have had to quarantine at different points this season, and with other towns in the same situation, some games have been canceled. But athletes are grateful that the season was able to happen at all. Basketball is currently not allowing any fans, and hockey has 1 fan per player, but every home game is available on Walpole Media TV, and away games are available on the other team's platform. Winter sports are about halfway through their season, and at the moment, Walpole teams have performed well. Gymnastics is currently 0-1, but are looking for a win tomorrow against Newton North. Girls basketball is 2-2 after winning big on Tuesday. The boys basketball team is currently 1-3. Hockey has been playing well as well, with boys currently at 2-1 and the girls at 0-2 in 1 tie. Fall 2 season modifications come out this week, and tryouts are set to begin on February 22nd. Clubs at the high school are busy as well, with several members of the speech and debate team participating in the Massachusetts State Tournament and even the National Tournament 2 weeks ago. Other clubs such as Random Act of Kindness Club, Spanish Club, Photography Club, and the UNICEF Club continue to hold meetings. Student Council reached out to Mr. Erker last week to give him a letter and thank you card that was signed by students to show our appreciation to him and how much we miss him. Lastly, the Drama Club worked very hard on their socially distant fall production, an evening of radio theater, and it's now available on YouTube. That's all. Thanks for listening.
Nice job, Grace. Any questions or comments for Grace? Dr. Goff.
Thanks, Grace. I just think I'm glad that you were able to mention a lot of the clubs, like Nancy, Mrs. Gallivan mentioned that. It's really nice to see, even during COVID, that the high school's able to have the number of clubs and to keep going and to think outside the box. So thank you for reporting that.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a great job, Grace. We're glad to have you. You're welcome to stay on, but you're not required to do that. We do appreciate your being here, and that was a really thorough report, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is under new business, and it has to do with social emotional learning and an update from that committee. Dr. Goff?
Yes, Walpole Public Schools has a preschool through grade 12 approach to social emotional learning, or what we have always, you might have heard us always call it SEL. So the SEL program in the district is guided at the district level by an SEL steering committee in conjunction with our goal 2 of the strategic plan. At Walpole Public Schools, the social and emotional well-being of our students continues to remain a top priority. Through the guidance of our SEL committee, our staff continues to promote skills and strategies that help students build self-awareness, resilience, and confidence. Ms. Sarah Scales, the head of the district-wide SEL committee, she's present tonight to give an overview of a social emotional or SEL update, and she'll be able to answer any questions that you have.
Awesome.
Welcome,
All right.
Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Goff, Assistant Superintendent Hahn, and the entire school committee for having me here tonight. As I was getting ready for this presentation, I shortly remembered that it was almost a year ago since the last time I presented here, which is crazy to think that that's really how long we've been in a pandemic. So I'm very excited to provide an update with regards to the work that we're currently doing. I really divided this presentation up sort of into 3 sections. One, because it has been so long since I've presented, I sort of wanted to give a review of our roles and responsibilities as a committee and really where we view ourselves as a committee in our work. then really give a progress update as to the work that we did the rest of the year. We did work through the pandemic and through remote learning last year, and then we've been really working hard this year. And as I will talk about in that part of the presentation, we really have sort of utilized this year where SEL is really at the forefront of education, as education and its landscape have really changed this year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the work we've been doing specific to this unique year, and then really give a trajectory as to the work for the rest of the year. For those who may not remember or don't know me, I'm Sarah Scales. I am the school adjustment counselor at Johnson Middle School. I co-lead the SEL committee for the past 2 years there. And then last year I did have a counterpart with me for this committee, but she has since continued her educational path in California. So while I miss her very much and wish she was here, I am very thankful that I've been able to continue this work. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so we are a team of staff from Walpole Public Schools who hold a variety of positions, experience levels, and years in education. We're made up of staff with one representative from each school and then one leader or chair of the committee. And really as a whole, we're committed to building and promoting the social emotional competencies of our staff, families, and students. So our mission statement that I shared last year is that the Walpole Public Schools are committed to the social and emotional well-being of our school communities. We believe that SEL is inseparable from academic learning. SEL is an ongoing process that promotes the skills necessary for developing the whole child. Through an integrated approach, our district really aims to foster inclusive, safe, and supportive school climates, positive and collaborative relationships, compassionate, resilient, and respectful staff and students, learning environments that embrace our diverse needs, cultures, and backgrounds, and we're committed to providing access to the resources necessary to promote this vision. So a little bit about what we do, what we've been doing, and sort of how often we meet, just to give the committee really a timeline and sort of an overview of the work that we've been doing. So we work collaboratively to assess and monitor staff and student social and emotional well-being and the learning needs in whatever the current context or environment of education may be. We work collaboratively to implement what will be the Walpole Public Schools social and emotional framework and recommendations. We really advocate for social and emotional learning and integration at the tier 1, 2, and 3 levels, and really ensure that our vision is at the forefront of district-wide and school decision-making processes. And when I talk about collaboration, and I'll talk about this more later, and you'll see below by our meeting times that it really indicates that we're collaborating with each other, with administrators, staff members, and families. So the SEL committee, we meet at least once a month. There have been a few times this year we've met 2 to 3 times a month, just depending on the current work that we're doing and the needs that we have. I meet with the assistant superintendent once every other week to provide updates and gain feedback and really build that bridge between district administration and our committee. I also attend leadership meetings on an as-needed basis. And then the representatives from each school meet with their building principals at least once a month, some more, to work towards the above vision and action steps. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So with that in mind, I want to really give a progress update. And the reason I put this first progress update is the first really update is that we have started to build strong, trusting, and collaborative relationships and rapport with the building administrators. Really, our representatives have started to take an active role in their school community. And as a leader of this committee, it's been really wonderful to sort of see staff members who maybe didn't really take an active leadership role in their schools before step out of their shell and really describe some anecdotes of what it's like to have people come and check in with them, to be interested in the work they're doing, and feel as though they've really built that relationship with their building principals. And that fundamental relationship was what we really felt was the foundation for this committee to start to have traction and to build success. We also continuously work on our draft Walpole Public Schools SEL framework. And I sort of give in this image on this slide a really brief skeleton of what our framework will look like. And that is adopted from frameworks across districts across the nation, and then also the Massachusetts framework, which is currently being developed. And then we distributed in the winter our student SEL surveys for grades 2 through 12. And these surveys looked at school climate, peer relationships, teacher to student relationships, and social and emotional competencies. So before I dive into sort of the progress update for where we are this year, I wanted to really bring up this slide, and I think it's actually really interesting that so much of what's already been talked about in the meeting tonight is around things such as clubs and mental health and really all of those other pieces of education and why they're so critical. So I first wanted to share, before diving into the specific work that we've done this year, is sort of why SEL has been critical this year. And as you can see on the slide here, students and adults, and I'm sure all of us have really been asked to demonstrate new ways of interacting and engaging. So our SEL skills have really been tested and brought to light more than they really ever have been before, whether it's that we're showing compassion and empathy for others through staying home, quarantining, trying to maintain relationships through technology, making daily choices to be engaged in our work, engaged in our academics, managing our own stressors and anxiety in newer, potentially uncomfortable ways, and really having to reflect on our own emotions, strengths, and identities. And so when we as a committee really sat and thought about this, we had to really think about, okay, what's a way we can sort of put what we're working on to action this year? And so with that in mind, we can go to the next slide. And so with that in mind, we really felt that it was important to distribute SEL needs assessments to our staff this year, because we really believe that in order to support our students, we need to support our staff as well. And so with that in mind, while we didn't do the original intended survey because we felt as though those results would be skewed, we instead did an SEL needs assessment for staff related to this year alone. And it was administered to all staff in the district, and we received 257 responses. It focused on the areas of physical health and safety, schedule and time, social, emotional, and mental health needs, and communication. And as I indicated here, some of the themes that we found from this is that staff really appreciate when their voices are heard and their voices are valued. They appreciate transparency and communication. They look forward to times of collaboration and planning. They really want support about how to take care of themselves mentally and emotionally. They really would love continued support in terms of what hybrid learning can really look like in an effective way. And ultimately, which I think is no surprise, is the staff really echoed how much they love being back with the students and continuing those relationships with them. And I think more than anything, what the results of this need assessment showed us is that we really understand the idea of Maslow before Bloom. So essentially the idea that our basic needs as adults and as students even need to be met before we can engage in any academic learning. And this is something that I know that the Walpole Public Schools continue to hold at the forefront of our minds as we're making decisions with this school year. So after we analyzed all of that data and shared with administration, we created and shared a document that outlines a range of recommendations that could be leveraged to support adult social and emotional well-being. So we really looked at specific action steps to accompany each of those areas that were reflected in the survey by district level and by grade level as well. So these were presented in a phase format, starting in phase 1, moving to phase 3, with the understanding that each building may be in a different position or at a different phase sort of in building these recommendations. And so we understand that at times it is going to be a collaborative process, and we may circle back to some of the earlier phases. So that was also shared with district and building administrators as well. So with all of that in mind, with these student surveys, with the staff surveys that we did, with building our framework, I want to talk about where are we going from here, where are our next steps. So we are continuing on a regular basis to partner with both building and district administration to work towards implementing the recommendations that I just spoke about in supporting staff for this year. We are currently in the process of analyzing the results of our student SEL surveys. The information from this survey is going to be used to inform our framework, so our developmental benchmarks, our tiered recommendations, and our best practices that we'll recommend. We are hoping by the end of this year to complete the draft framework that will be shared for review and feedback. And then we are looking to create and receive feedback on and distribute the generic staff SEL surveys next year. We are continuing to keep the Walpole Public School staff up to date on our work with about quarterly updates at staff meetings. And myself and Assistant Superintendent Hahn are continuing the conversation on how to involve families in this process. This is something that since the last time I remember presenting at school committee, that he and I have actively spoke about, that now that we really have these relationships built with administrators and this foundation built, that we are ensuring that we are going to be looking to get feedback from families and think more intentionally how to involve families in this process as we really build this comprehensive framework for us to do some really awesome work at the district level and the school levels as well. So with that in mind, does anybody have any questions or any feedback?
Questions or comments, anybody? I'll give it oh, go ahead, Sean. You go first.
Thank you, Nancy. I just wanted to say thank you for the thorough presentation, and it's really encouraging to see all of the work that you've been doing very methodically and very thorough as well. I love seeing the highlighted point about meeting the Maslow before Bloom in the needs category, making sure, I think you were talking about the staff, but also being able to meet the students there as well so that they're able to access learning. And I love seeing that trend through this presentation and through some of the things that Mr. Hahn and Dr. Goff have brought to us previously. I'm just super encouraged as a parent, and I love hearing that you're going to look to involve parents in the future. So I can't wait to see how this continues to develop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Goff.
Sarah, just thank you. I mean, your hard work, does not go unnoticed. I mean, this is yeoman's work that, what you've been doing, and I'm glad that you continued it, into the second year, and really your passion and dedication, for this really shines through. So your hard work and your dedication to, not only the students, but, our staff at Walpole Public Schools it's greatly appreciated. So I'm looking forward to, working with you through these next phases.
Thank you.
Mr. Hahn.
I don't want to say too much since Dr. Goff, already did a great job thanking Sarah, but I also want to recognize that everyone in this committee is volunteers, their time and their work, because this work means so much to them. Monthly meetings, these bi-monthly meetings with their principals, with their administration, staff that they engage, the analyzing of the surveys. It's just incredible. And we won't be successful in this SEL work without this organic grassroots efforts by this incredible staff, by this committee. I wanted to make sure I pointed that out for those that didn't know that these are people that are coming together, volunteering their time and work. And I've been lucky enough to attend some of the meetings. They are invested. You want to go to an organized, thoughtful, as I think Sean said, deliberate meeting, that's a good meeting to go to where you can see people who are engaged in the work they're doing. So I just wanted to point that out and echo the sense of gratitude that Dr. Goff mentioned as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hahn. Carrie?
Thank you, Sarah, for your presentation and all your hard work. I think the flip side of what Mr. Hahn was just talking about, the commitment and the hard work of the committee is excellent, and it's what drives the work forward. But if you don't have that partnership at the administrative level, it's very hard to gain traction and to actually make things happen. So I really appreciate that you and Mr. Hahn are meeting so regularly, and that the committee members are meeting so frequently with their building admins, because I think social emotional learning is one of those things. There's always something that seems a little bit more pressing and a little bit more timely, and it's easy for this work to get pushed to the side. And so I'm just happy that we have this structure in place to keep driving it forward. And I'm hoping that once your student survey gets off the ground and you have results to share, that you can come back and share those results with us, and we can hear more about your plans to work with those results the way that you are with staff. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of to that point too, I think what's been sort of the unintended benefits of this year is seeing, first of all, you know, people from different positions in all the schools really come together. We frequently sort of reflect on our practice as a committee and sort of how we're really making cross collaboration and cross school collaboration work effectively. And I think that has been really a neat sort of unintended consequence that I didn't really think about going into this. And I think as the leader of the committee, seeing the staff feel empowered, like I said, to really take an active role and build those partnerships with their building administrators, for them to sort of come to me and say, you know, I never would have thought of this opportunity otherwise, or this has really helped me see my administration perspective, and they've been really open to seeing our perspective. And I think that's been something that we didn't really think about going into it, but seeing kind of a microcosm, especially with our work this year, as to how this could work on a global scale has been really rewarding. So we look forward to continue to see how that grows, because as Mr. Hahn said, this is something that I'm very lucky to be a part of, and I have a committee who is invigorated and invested in wanting to do the work. And so I always remind them that I'm very thankful for all the work and passion they bring to this as well.
Anybody else? Sarah, I'm gonna go out on a little bit on a limb here. I wonder if you have any way of sort of giving us a sense of how we're doing on teaching kids to be empathetic. A couple of years ago, we had a blow up over bullying, and, you know, I would rather talk about something like the need to teach empathy when there is no crisis. Does your work intersect with that? And how do you feel like we're doing in that area if it intersects?
So I would absolutely say that that is absolutely one of the skills, I would say, one of the social emotional learning skills underneath the competencies that we are looking at and that are embedded into our framework. And so I sort of think, to your point, that yes, absolutely intersects, because that is one of the key skills that we want our students and our staff to really develop and develop with full competence. And so I think with that in mind, not only does it intersect, but I think to your point is that, yes, we don't want that just to be a skill that people have when there's a crisis. And so that really is a great example of sort of why a framework is intentionally being developed, because we understand that we want to have standards and we want to have benchmarks and we want to have performance indicators that reflect all those skills throughout everyday life, regardless if there's a crisis or a national emergency or a pandemic. I think right now we're seeing things such as empathy be highlighted in a time like this, in a heightened time of crisis. However, the idea behind building that framework and building that integration into our everyday work is something that will continue to be fostered through this. I think it looks different at every level right now. I think right now at the elementary schools, where they have really, really well-established programs that guidance goes in, we see more of those direct skills being taught, where I think more at the middle and high school level, it's more in vivo, it's more in the moment, it's more modeled through different practices that counselors or even teachers and educators are trying to model for those students and really see how that works for their appropriate developmental age level. So absolutely, I hope that answers your question, that it definitely will be continue to be integrated and looked at developmentally as well.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments for Sarah? Thank you for the tremendous work that you're doing, and thank you for a very good update. I echo what Carrie's saying. I would really love to hear what the students have to say and how that drives the next layer of your work. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, that gets us to a nuts and bolts issue of the, we will take a tentative vote this evening on the FY22 budget. And the reason I say tentative is because we will have to work through the next few months before we finally bring this budget to town meeting. And it may change between now and then, but we've spent the last few weeks as a committee evaluating the budget, and the administration has spent the last few months developing the budget. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Goff.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a second to move things out of the way. So hold on one second. There, now I can see. Okay. So as Nancy Gallivan mentioned, we've had our goods and service, budget hearing, we had our personnel budget hearing, and then as most recent as last Thursday, we had a school committee workshop. What Mike and I want to do is just summarize that again, refresh all of our memories, because school committee, we'll be asking school committee to vote on the FY22 budget. So you'll be able to see just a refresher of what we discussed and see where that number has come in and why it's come in like that. So Mike, I'll let you start by discussing the FY21 final.
Okay, so the spreadsheet that you see before you is an accounting of how we started with our FY20 budget and how we developed our FY21 budget. Now, obviously, we're talking about FY22 budget tonight, so the question may be, why are we talking about 20 and 21? In order to fully understand how the 22 budget was accounted for, especially one of the numbers in particular on this spreadsheet, which is about 736,000, you have to understand the background of how the prior fiscal years were developed. So at the top of the spreadsheet, we began our FY21 budget last year with a 20 budget of $46,092,835. We had a very robust conversation with Jim Johnson, town administrator. Things were heading in a really positive direction. There were a lot of new positions that were going to be included in our FY21 budget. Things looked really optimistic, and then the pandemic hit. And we literally crumpled this up and started all over again. So we created two budgets last year. So what I'm going to review with you right now is how we created that first budget for FY21 and how that relates to 22. So given the challenges, the fiscal challenges of the pandemic, there was a lot of uncertainty last year. And our town administrator was willing to, at one point, kind of early in the game, commit to a particular number. And that number is $766,041. He gave us that number in May, which was actually early, and it allowed us to develop a budget of $46,858,876. So that was the good news. The bad news was that we had other costs associated in our budget that weren't covered. So as you go down the mandate list, you can see the Medicaid grant decrease. We lost money to the federal government. The FY20 unbudgeted positions, things we had to add to our 20 budget that needed to be included in 21. We had a special education tuition increase. So these are all things that we could not control, and that became part of what we need to include in FY21. The problem was that created, when you add that up, plus our contractual obligations, collective bargaining goes up every year. We have to pay our staff for steps and COLA increases. That created a deficit. The difference between what Jim Johnson was giving us and what we needed was $923,959. So at that point, we realized we're either going to have to lay off a tremendous amount of staff, because that's the only way you can generate that kind of savings, or figure out a way to bridge this gap in hopes that in FY22 we could permanently fix this problem. So we got to work, and there are three particular funding sources that we used to cover the gap temporarily. We're calling this one-time budget offsets. The first was we saved our money, we scrimped and saved wherever we could within the personnel budget, and we carried over that money. That's that first number of $285,000. The second way was that we put a holdback, a freeze on our principal's budget spending in our central office, and we only spent where we could, where we had to, where we were mandated to, and where we weren't mandated, we did not spend. And we were able to save an additional $351,959. In addition, some initial CARES Act relief, this was very early on, came in to averaging about $100,000. So of that $923,000 deficit we had, we were able to use one-time funds that we carried over into 21 to fix the problem. That was worth $736,959. So what about the difference? What did we do there? At the bottom of the spreadsheet, you'll see we still had a remaining problem of $187,000. This was covered in a different way. We used recurring offsets, so things that we could fix permanently so that going forward, that problem didn't have to be, that funding gap didn't have to be replaced. It was a permanent fix. And you can see those detailed on the right-hand column, which was special ed goods and service reduction. We were able to save some money working with John Quilly in the special ed department of $60,000. We had a grant surplus in one of our grants that we were able to move somebody out of the operating budget, charge them to a grant, so that saved us $35,000. And then we had two teaching positions, one retiree and one that we did not have to fill at the high school. One was an ELA teacher, and the other position was an an ESP position, which totaled $92,000. So that's what covered the final $187,000. So we were very glad, or I guess relieved, to not have to lay off approximately 16 staff members, which would have been devastating going into a pandemic, not knowing what you're facing. And now looking back, realizing what we went into, knowing how bad that would have been to lay off 16 staff members. So, but remember, the $736,000 is a one-time savings. So let's fast forward now to FY22. You'll see at the top of this spreadsheet on the left-hand side is what we're calling our level funded budget. What we would get if we just simply move forward and cover that deficit from last year in this year's budget. So at the top of the spreadsheet, you have our starting FY21 budget. And then the second line down is our one-time funds that we use. That $736,000 we borrowed from last year, but we have to replenish those funds because we didn't lay off those people. They're still in our budget, and that has to be funded within our FY22 budget. So that's on there. Our collective bargaining this year is $1,456,000. We were able to reduce, with the help of the special ed department this year, a considerable amount of funding in their goods and services related to tuitions. So we were up to $223,000 right now is what we're able to reduce from goods and services and offset our total cost from going from last year to this year. That gives us a level funded budget need of $1,968,064. That results in our budget of $48,826,940 for just level services. Our town administrator, and working collaboratively with him as this process develops, still again a little bit early in the game, has come in with $48,605,520. That leaves us for level services with a gap of $221,420, which is a lot of money, but is not, in the overall scheme of things, is a pretty positive place to be at this point in the budget process. Moving over to the right-hand column, you'll see that it's the same, basically the same numbers, with the exception of the needed positions, about 6 lines down. On the left-hand side, it's zero because it's a level service budget. On the right-hand side, that is $530,000 of positions that are absolutely needed by the school departments. Some of these, a fair amount, if not most of them, are from last year. These are positions we had hoped to get that we were looking at being able to fund, and then the pandemic hit, so those went away. We just couldn't do that in the pandemic. So some of those positions are back with some slight alterations to them. And that would give us a gap or a need of increase of $2,498,064. That gives us a budget increase to $49,356,940. And that is a 5.3% increase. Again, right below that line, comparing, is the same town administrator number that has not changed, which is $48,605,520. So what is our gap? Our gap at this point between the school department need and the town administrator's resources at this point is $751,420. Considerable amount of money that we're working very closely with town administrator. We've gotten some more certainty on the governor's budget and better estimations of funding coming in from the state as well as some of the local receipts. And we're hopeful that that gap is going to come down a fair amount, but we'll wait to see. Again, it's still early in the game. And then I would turn it over back to Superintendent Goff, who would like to talk about the positions that the school department is looking for.
Thanks, Mike. And I'd also like to note that when you look at that 5.3% increase, and I know we talked about this, just remember that's including that 736. So if we didn't have that 736 that we had to fill the one-time gap, that would not be asking for a 5.3% increase. I believe, Mike, it's probably about 1.5 and 1.6 lower.
Correct.
With that 736. So that's important to note. So just to review the positions, and again, when you're looking at these positions, you might say, well, wait a minute, these look so familiar. Well, yes, we've discussed them, but also most of these positions were on here last year that we presented and agreed upon. So just a quick review, the ESOL teacher, that's our English language learner teacher, that is for the district. That is so that we are able to have one ESOL teacher at each school, so to provide equitable services across the district. The health and wellness teacher is at the high school. We talked about the social emotional piece and the need to build the health and wellness program at the high school. The ESP, ESOL teacher, is also at the high school, and that's necessary also for the numbers that they have there, also translating, especially for our IEP students, and then a lot of our seniors going off to college. There's time that's needed to help with those college applications. The 2.0 elementary counselors, that would give each building one full-time person to provide that support for students. We've discussed that. That probably goes without saying. Right now, there's one at each building, and then there's a half-time person that goes back and forth between each of the two buildings. So to get 2.0 would help alleviate that, provide that across the district. The 1.0 middle school special education chair, that's something that was added on this year. That is to be shared, that would give each middle school a special education chair to be able to not only work with our teachers, and they would be, in a nutshell, our team chair at the middle school, she has the highest caseload in the district. So this would not only help with caseload, but also be responsible for transitioning students, because currently the special education chair is not only between two buildings, but is also responsible for transitioning students from 5th grade to 6th grade, and then also 8th grade to 9th grade. So I always say that kind of stuck in the middle, so to speak. And then the chairs would also be able to provide training, evaluations and observations, and provide models of delivery for teachers to help close these achievement gaps at the middle level prior to these students going off to the high school. The 1.0 transition coach would be shared between the two schools to help work with our students, our families, and our teachers, and to provide outside support to help with things like school anxiety, students that are returning from hospitalizations, and concussions. The 0.4 computer science teacher would be at the high school. This would not only allow more technology courses to be offered, but they may also be able to help shift the current teacher who's teaching the financial literacy course offering, So to possibly increase that course offering so more students are able to take that, because that is a hot commodity at the high school. And then the last one is the full day K reduction. That would help reduce the cost of the full day K kindergarten by another $100,000 across the board. And Mike, would that be, I want to make sure I'm accurate, would that make the cost $1,400 for next year?
Yes, approximately.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's $1,350, but I can give you that exact number. You're right in that window.
Okay. So when you look at those positions, they total 530,000. So when you go back on that right-hand column, when you're adding in those positions, then the FY22 budget request would be for $49,356,940. So I think also the discussion, I would turn it back to Nancy as to, I know we talked about keeping those positions, that those were needed positions, not just requested positions. We had the majority of the positions on there, as last year that we did not add due to COVID and due to our financial circumstance.
Thank you, Bridget, and Mike. We're trying to summarize months worth of work into a 15 or 20-minute discussion right here. But I think it's important, for the sake of the listening audience and the people who look at our notes tomorrow morning, to have some understanding around our budget. I think that some of the important points are that the pandemic did cause us to have to redo our budget, just like the whole world had to redo their budget. And one of the things that I think the school district should be proud of is we were able to avoid layoffs last spring, and we were able to do it by using our own financial resources, by scrimping and saving every bit of money that didn't need to get spent last spring. And we also were supportive of the town as a whole. There were so many unknowns, but at the time that we set our budget, let me go back a step. In the budget that we're operating on this year wasn't set until a town meeting that occurred during July, I believe. And at that point, it wasn't clear how much money we were going to be getting as a town through our state resources. That has since settled, and the money did come in higher than what was expected. So I think we should be pleased that we didn't lay people off, and I think that the town is also positioned well because the state aid did come in higher than expected last year. The reason I say that is because in some ways, I would say that the budget that I would like to advocate for would include all of the positions that we feel are needed. In my opinion, it would include the full $530,000. And if we operate off the adjusted budget that we are using this year, because we were able to apply the savings towards the budget, it's only a 3.7% increase from our adjusted budget. It is a 5.3% increase above what we initially received from the town. But if there's a way to provide this next level of service, in my opinion, it really brings our district forward in some very important ways. I think there are some people who would look at the positions that we're looking for and say, many of them will support students that struggle. In this climate, many students are struggling. And the very, very good news about the FY22 budget is we're hoping to be back fully engaged to regular school in September of next year. We're hoping to, yes, we might be wearing masks. Yes, there might be some restrictions still in place, but when we try to get back to what's considered normal, many of these supports are going to be needed by many students, and the more we support the struggling students, the more we support the system as a whole. So I'm going to stop and open it up to some of the other committee members, but I do think that it's important to have some level of discussion like this so that the average parent or community member who wants to understand our budget realizes the amount of thought that has gone into it to get it to this point. We recognize the fact that it's a very, very large amount of money. It's a very, very large percentage of the town budget as a whole, and we take that responsibility tremendously seriously. Bill, it looked like you were going to say something. Yeah.
Madam Chair, thank you. This is strong work from both Dr. Goff and Mr. Fisher. We say this all the time. It is emblematic of the collaborative nature the school and the town has. It is different than some of our colleagues who are sitting through 4 and 5 hour budget meetings on Zoom and other places. And I think it's important to underscore, as Nancy did, the fact that it really isn't a 5-point-something request because of just the nature of budgeting in the last 18 months. And it's been a moving target. And the indicators we have before us, from state aid to possibility of federal aid, and just economic indicators in general, tell us that this year is not going to be as apocalyptic as last year's forecasts were, and then didn't seem to be. So all of this, I think, is really prudent, is really careful, and is really driven by the needs of the district. So I think we've had a great discussion around this, but I would just make a motion for the number of $49,356,940 for our budget request to the town for the FY22 budget. I think this is very well done, and it's something worth fighting for and continuing to dialogue with the town about.
I will second Mr. Buckley's motion.
That's great. So we have a motion by Bill and a second by Carrie. There's plenty of time now for further discussion. That doesn't shut off the discussion, but it does put an indication of how some members would like to proceed. Are there other people that would like to comment or add to the discussion? Sean?
Just to comment through you, Nancy, I think whether it's coincidence or not, that we had a fantastic SEL presentation earlier in this meeting that really gave light to many of the needs for the positions that have been requested last year with great foresight, and then again reinforced this year by bringing them back, that they are essential to supporting students, and as you made the point, Nancy, all students really. I think that was very well emphasized during the presentation, that we're not seeking out specific groups of people, but the aspect of social and emotional learning touches all teachers, all students, and then penetrates into the families as well, and builds up a positive, encouraging, very self-aware community that can lay the groundwork for fantastic educational opportunities. So just, if someone's not familiar with SEL, it's sort of a nebulous term for, if you haven't explored it, you generally see like math, science, social studies positions. But as learning evolves, we need to evolve with it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions or comments?
I just have one, Nancy, just
Yes.
on Sean's point, but thanks, Sean, for mentioning that, because it does show why we have these budget hearings and why we separate them, because there's so many different parts to our budget. And that's why we take that time, that painstaking time, to have a separate night for our goods and services budget, and then another night for our personnel. And then we have our school committee budget workshop after that to, again, really take a look and be able to process both of those hearings and be able to get, leadership feedback, school committee feedback before making the decision and the vote on the budget at the end of the day. So, thanks.
I guess I would just add, and Mike pretty much put this into his part of the presentation, but from here, we will take a vote tonight, and the budget will evolve over the next couple of months. One of our next steps will be to present it to the Finance Committee, and that usually takes, at least 2 evenings to fully explore that, so that they have a chance to ask all the questions that they need. During that time, our administration and the town administration will stay in close contact with each other, because available revenue is a moving target. But I believe at some point next week, the town administrator is going to present his proposed town budget, which also gets presented to the Finance Committee. And it will get massaged, isn't the exact word, but it'll evolve over the next few months. So that while this is an important vote that we're taking, it's not the end of the story. And I think that I could get really excited about the future of the Walpole Public Schools if we could support it with the budget number that Mr. Buckley gave as his in his motion. I think that we have some incredible staff members who are going to need a vacation this summer at some point, but they're also in some ways just raring to go with some ideas that they haven't been able to do because of all of the forces that they've had to deal with this year. So all in all, I think that this could be a great thing for the kids of Walpole. Anything else? If not, there is a motion and a second on the floor. I need to poll the committee just one more time. Any more questions or comments? Okay. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes. So that's a unanimous vote. Thank you, administrators, for all of the work that it has taken to get us to this point. And we'll be with you for the next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, that gets us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Goff?
A little shorter than last time, so. So currently, Walpole, I think the last I saw a few hours ago, is at a 7.89 positivity rate. It's a slight increase from last week, not much. It was, I think, 7.71, and it was, I think, 8% the week before. So we're in the 8th straight week in Walpole in red. Last week, Walpole Public Schools confirmed 30 cases. As of this evening, there are 8 reported. So we'll see what happens this week. So fingers crossed. We'll see where we are. Just a reminder, though, we need to stay the course. Now that we're approximately halfway through We're getting into the second semester. We did send a letter home to families through Kathy Garvin, our nurse leader, just reminding families of that COVID symptom checklist. So we sent the checklist home again. And during the contact tracing process, families have noticed that their child seemed to maybe have only a cold or a mild sore throat or feeling nauseous. Children, especially young children, she said, often have mild symptoms, but are very capable of transmitting the virus to others. So we sent out that symptom checklist again to really review before sending children to school. It's really crucial that families keep children home, if they're not feeling well, to continue to take a look at the list. They can call their school nurses if they have any questions about whether to send children to school, and the nurses will be happy to assist them in any way. It really, really will prevent transmission and students during the contagious period. Additionally, just to remind that students must not attend school if anyone in their household has been diagnosed with COVID or they are a close contact. So please note, everyone, if people in the household are a close contact when one person tests positive. As a reminder, we're asking families to take 5 to 10 minutes to complete that survey that'll provide us with continued feedback about student learning and the health and safety of our students. I'll have principals send it out again. I asked them to send it out again in e-notes because the survey will be open until February 2nd. So we're really committed to supporting the academic and social emotional needs of our students, and taking this survey helps us to continue making the necessary adjustments. We're continuing to bring back as many students as possible. I'm pleased to note that beginning Monday, February 8th, we'll be transitioning students in grade 2 back to in-person learning for 4 days a week. That's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. In order to make this transition and retain 6 feet of physical distancing between students and make sure that we adhere to the safety protocols, in some cases that classes may be moving to larger spaces, or we might need to add another classroom or section. The solution will be different in different buildings, as both the number of students in class and the size of our classroom spaces, they differ from school to school. So in some, just like in first grade, students may be seeing traditional classroom spaces. In other cases, they will be learning in alternate spaces or a new classroom. The staff have been working hard to set up spaces with furniture, equipment, and technology, just like in grade 1, to replicate those classroom experiences as much as possible. I'd like to thank all of the grade 2 teachers and the administration for all of their hard work to make this change. It's really great, again, to get out and see what's going on in the classrooms and the schools, both in person and virtually. And other than that, it's been budget, right, Mike? And that's my report. So we're excited to get the grade 2 back.
That's great. Are there any questions for Bridget? Well done. Okay, so our next item is in the old business section. We have a proposed school year calendar for a second reading. I had mentioned the last time that we're not going to vote on it until February, so I'd prefer to not vote on it this evening, but can you just explain it to us, Dr. Goff, or?
Sure. So if you're looking at this calendar, you can see that the school year, that on 8/30 and 8/31 that the teachers would start, and that on September 1st, the first day of school for grades 1 through 12. And then you can see the last day as it stands, June 15th would be the last day of K through 11 with no snow days, and then 6/21 would be with the 5 snow days. We had proposed to change some of the early release days or add them in this calendar, and after receiving feedback and further consideration, the proposal is withdrawn. The principals did send that home to families. The early release days will stay on the same days and as scheduled. Leadership is asking for the possibility to add at least just 1 half day in the fall in order to get this additional 2 hours or 2.5 hours of training. They felt the fall was better, and Bill, please, if I miss anything, feel free to step in. That when you look in October is designated for parent-teacher conferences on the 22nd. So they would not have any type of training until December. So looking at a possible addition in November, keeping it on a Friday, if Fridays are what we would prefer, talking with leadership, looking at possibly November 5th. Not the 19th, thinking it would back up a little too close to Thanksgiving. And it would be a couple of weeks after parent-teacher conferences. So we'll be able to talk to parents and then continue with training. Did I miss anything, Bill?
No, and I think that leadership was willing to be flexible. They just thought that one half day in the fall would really help with a lot of the upfront training. We have some work to do with an early literacy mandate next year that's going to require some important training and professional development. So I think October 8th was another date that was thrown out there, and we're willing to work with you in the community. Just to add one would be welcomed.
Great, thank you, Bill and Bridget. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I was having a little technical problems switching screens. That was my question. I wasn't clear. So what is in our packet does not include the one additional day that you're talking about in the fall?
Correct.
Okay, and I think that'll give us just a little bit of time. One of the positives about October 8th would be if the students were released at noon that day, it makes for a longer weekend because Monday is a holiday. I looked at potentially November 12th that same way, but we want the students to attend school in the morning. So it doesn't, it doesn't work in the same way. Because if we're back to normal and high school kids are beginning to look at colleges, sometimes creating a long weekend is beneficial for them. So that's just a thought. But I do support the idea of getting another half day somewhere in October and November. And I don't know if there are other members of the committee that have opinions on where it should fall at this point. But I'll open it up to any discussions. And I will say, I don't know what I did, but I can't see other people besides Bridget. So Bridget, just let me know.
I got you, Nancy. I can.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, seems like a good compromise. I don't think I really care either way which one it is. I'm glad it's still on Friday. And did you say you didn't want to vote this tonight? You wanted to wait?
Yeah, I would prefer to vote it at our next meeting because that's what I had said last time.
All right, sounds good to me.
Any other questions or comments?
I think we're good.
Okay. And if everybody on the committee would just take some time to take a look at the school committee meeting calendar. I think we'll vote the two of them in tandem next meeting. And sometimes we have to adjust our calendar based on the needs, but take a look at it and see if you have any problems with what's proposed right now, and we'll take a vote on that at our next meeting. Okay, the next item under old business is the middle school building project. Just a little bit of an update. Who's going to take that?
I'm giving that one to Mark.
I can take it, Nancy.
Thank
Great,
you,
thank you.
Committee Chair. Mark.
Very good. Thank you. So just a little review of timeline here. On the 19th of this month, the Select Board's Sewer and Water Committee and the Building Committee met to discuss concerns about the Johnson site being close to the wells, etc. On the 20th, we had a community forum where, among other things, concerns about the Johnson site or the merits of each site were discussed. On the 26th, just the other day, the building committee voted in favor of the bird site. That's an important milestone. In favor of the bird site, I believe the vote was 11-3 with one abstention. The preferred schematic, in other words, the bird site with a rough outline of what we want to put there, has to be submitted to the MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority, by the end of February, give or take. The town meeting will have to take it up in the fall, and there'll be a town-wide vote in the fall to endorse the building. But in the meantime, what I'd like this committee to do tonight is to take a vote to endorse the decision of the school building committee to choose the bird site. So it's not a binding vote, it's simply taking a position, endorsing the position of the school building committee.
And I think, Mark, it's also that, but also that it's a new building, right? It's that B1 instead of.
Thank you, correct. There were two potential options in the bird site. One was an addition renovation. The other is for a completely new school. So we chose the route of building a completely new combined school on the bird site. Thank you, Dr. Goff.
Welcome. So that would be B, it was called B1.
B1.
Carrie.
I would just like to say that I want to thank Mark and all the members of the school building committee for running a really thorough and transparent process for us, the school committee members that aren't on the school building committee, and also the community at large. I attended most, if not all, of the community forums, and I believe that our partners Compass remarked that our forums have been consistently very highly attended compared to ones they've seen in other communities, which has been great to see. We've received lots and lots of correspondence over email and lots of participation in the community forums. We have heard the opinions of, as Mark said, select board and sewer and water and various community members. So I think that it only makes sense to endorse the decision that the school building committee made on Tuesday night. And so I will make a motion to endorse the decision to build a new middle school building on the current Berg Middle School site.
Okay.
Great. I heard a motion from Carrie, and I think the second, I'm going to give it to you, Kristen. I think you had some really good points, Carrie. Are there other people who'd like to comment? I would just echo some of what Mark and Carrie and Bridget have said already. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for our students. I think that it's also a tremendous responsibility to get this right. And the school building committee is made up of somewhere around, I believe it's about 18 people. Is that right, Mark?
16, 17 in that neighborhood,
Okay.
I think.
Yep. And, you know, people come from various perspectives and put all their thoughts and ideas together. The meetings are recorded. They're available on community TV. And I think that the fact that they were done over Zoom has allowed people to participate in the forums as well. I think that that's just sort of a hidden advantage, but it's important for us to take the responsibility of informing the community. And I think that Mark and everybody else who is part of that committee are doing a great job making sure that that happens. So I would be glad to support the motion that's on the table. I think it's just a great opportunity for our students, and I think the plan is well thought out. Anything else that anybody wants to add? If not, then I will hold the committee for supporting the motion to endorse the project. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes. So a unanimous decision to endorse that project and to commit to continue with the good communication. Anything else related to that, Mark?
No, I don't think so, Nancy. You know, like I keep saying every time, the pace is picking up, so it gets more interesting with each passing meeting, which is fun, a little scary, but fun. So.
Yeah, but that is the responsibility piece. You feel a little bit the weight of the responsibility. I think that's a good thing. Great. Okay. Gets us to subcommittee reports. I just wanted to remind people that the legislative breakfast that Tech is doing is being done virtually this year. It's on Friday morning, February 5th, and seats are still available because it's bring your own breakfast. But I know that Bridget and Bill Buckley and Jen and I are planning to attend. Any and all of you are welcome to join if you are available that morning. Just get in touch and I'll get you the link. It does, this is another case where COVID may be helping us, but we have a commitment from Senator Lewis, who is, Bill, you would know better than I think he's the chair of the Senate side of the Joint Education Committee. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Representative Peisch, who is the House of Representatives chair of the Education Committee. She also is a previous school committee member from Wellesley, so she knows our suburban issues well. I know that I don't want to say for sure which of our representatives are going to be there because I didn't check today to see about all the RSVPs. But one of the pieces that we hope to do is to end with some breakout sessions with our own individual legislators. So one of the things that I think Walpole does well is we show up at these legislative events and we advocate for state funding. So it's just an opportunity to do that. And that's pretty much it for the legislative breakfast. Are there any other subcommittees that need to report? Okay, then that gets us to approvals of warrants, donations, and minutes. Sean, you have the warrants?
Yes. I would like to make a motion to approve the following payroll warrant. Sorry, I'll go in order. I would like to make a motion to approve the following expense warrants for the amounts listed in your packets. 221028, 221029, and 221030.
Second.
We have a motion by Sean and a second by Carrie. Any further discussion? Not, I'll pull the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Nancy, yes. Okay, keep going, Sean.
Yes, and now I would like to make a motion to approve the following payroll warrant. Number 2128PA.
Second.
Again, we have a motion by Sean, a second by Carrie. I'll pull the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes. Thank you. And that gets us to donations. Does somebody want to take that?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the following gifts and donations to Boyden School from various donors to the Multicultural Book Initiative, $2,440. To Boyden School, Fisher School, Old Post Road School, Elm Street School, Bird Middle School, Johnson Middle School, and Walpole High School from the Junior Women's Club of Walpole. Nurse supplies, totaling $700.
Second.
We have a motion by Carrie, a second by Kristen for a very generous set of donations. I'll poll the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes. Okay, and then there are some minutes. If somebody wants to, yeah.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the January 12th, 2021 public budget hearing minutes.
Second.
A motion by Bill, a second by Kristen. Polling the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Nancy, yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the January 14th school committee meeting minutes.
Second.
Again, we have a motion by Bill, a second by Kristen. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the January 19th, 2021 second public budget hearing meeting minutes.
Second.
Again, a motion by Bill, a second by Kristen. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the January 21, 2021 budget workshop meeting minutes. And Mary, I promise to actually show up and sign them one of these days.
Second.
Okay, and we have a motion by Bill, second by Kristen. Polling the committee again. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes. Okay, our next meeting will be on February 11th, and I just need a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Mark, a second by, I'm gonna give that to you, Carrie. Bill?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie? Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes. Thank you for those people who are listening, and thank you to everyone who did the work to prepare this meeting. And we'll see you soon.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Aye.
Thank you.